Good morning. It's an honor to be here. My name is Lori Foltz, and I'm one of the regional leaders on our global brand team for Deutsche Post DHL. And I would also like to take a minute to acknowledge several other members of our team, namely Wolfgang Giel and our senior board members in Germany, who unfortunately were to attend today and their flights were canceled. But let me give you an introduction to who we are, Deutsche Post DHL. A couple of facts. Deutsche Post DHL is a $60 billion business and one of the top 3 employers worldwide. And being the leader in global logistics, operations is in our DNA. But as they say, that a picture is worth 1,000 words, we thought that a short introductory video would be worth taking a look at.
National boundaries have lost their importance in the 21st century. Everything now moves globally. DHL's vision is to become the logistics company for the world. We offer expertise in international express, air and ocean freight, road and rail transportation, contract logistics, and international mail services. We want to continue our success story and become and remain first choice for customers, employees, and investors. And with our global climate protection program, we aim at reducing our carbon emissions by almost 1/3 until 2020. By modernizing our fleet of aircraft, for instance, and by equipping our ground fleet with alternative propulsion units and using alternative fuels. We set standards in logistics and in sustainability. DHL is well positioned for the future.
First, a little bit of background as to the situation. Deutsche Post started as a state-owned German mail business and enjoyed a comfortable monopoly until about 1994, when deregulation started to threaten sales and also transformed Deutsche Post into a publicly listed company. At that point, management was left with a challenge. Where are we going to look for future growth for the business? That's when top management decided to build a second core business, and that to become the world's leading logistics provider. In order to do that, multiple acquisitions needed to take place on a regional level, including DHL. As we did that, customers began to ask for one single point of contact, which presented us with another challenge. We needed to migrate to a single brand platform and one global brand. Why is one global brand so important? What is the value of having a brand? Well, just take a minute and think about the DHL brand and what comes to mind. Whatever association that's coming to your mind about our product and service, that's the brand in our consumer's mind. It provides 3 benefits. Number 1, a brand is about building consumer confidence in purchase decisions and lowering risk. Let's take, for example, if you're in Shanghai and you need to ship a document to New York by the next business day at noon. Which brand would you choose? Your purchase decision will be based on which brand provides you the greatest confidence to get it there. The second benefit of a brand is its ability to bundle everything that you need to know in one data package. And the third benefit, it's about reputation. And reputation can translate into financial success. For DHL, brand is an important driver for our global logistics business. The financial value of the brand asset is our ultimate financial performance metric. For us, the brand asset value is if you compare the discounted cash flow of a branded versus a non-branded business, it will give you the brand asset value. And we know from our competitors, UPS and FedEx, that there is significant value in branding. And acknowledging that fact, in 2003, we began to ask ourselves, how can we also build up DHL brand equity? For many firms, including DHL at the time, brand management was about art rather than science. It was about going with your gut feeling. Who yelled the most, or who had the best, most convincing argument in the management board meeting, or the most creative copy that the ad agency could come up with became the key message. But being an operations-led company, we decided that we should run our brand management program the way we run our business and make it more analytical. And that's what we started to do in 2003 when we started the Global Brand Assessment Project, which was based on analytics. Today, brand management at DHL is about operations research. It's also about making objective, fact-based influence, letting facts influence our design and our branding campaigns. And lastly, it's about making sure that our messages are linked to economic criteria. And as I mentioned, branding is much more than an art at DHL, and I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Mark Fisher, who will explain a little bit more about how it's a science in our company.
Thanks. Well, how to build a global brand? The first thing you need to decide is the unique selling proposition. Then you need to determine which are the important, the relevant brand attributes that support this unique selling proposition. And this typically is a decision which involves a lot of qualitative decisions because you involve ad agencies to build all these fancy films and all these fancy photographs. And these decisions used to be taken by conceptual models, some qualitative models. And what our model is about is to bring in some quantitative insight and to bring this on a basis that is really driven by operations research method, by management science and analytics. Why is that important? Well, unlike in operations, it already delivers value because you have something quantifiable and you have something marketing is accountable to. And that in itself is a value. But of course, our model also allows you to optimize allocation decisions. And that is done under the restriction of a limited marketing budget, which is the typical case for a company. And in that sense, I believe our model is truly innovative because for brand management, it used to be by large qualitative assessment, qualitative concepts, and not quantitative concepts. Of course, in marketing, we know operations research being applied to pricing decisions or to product design, but for brand management, that has not been the case so far. And so in that case, I believe we are really on the edge to develop something new in this respect. The core of our model is an understanding of the customer decision process. Because we know that customers decide about to purchase a brand according to a hierarchical process, and this is the basis of all the understanding and of all the understanding of the drivers of the purchase decision. And maybe you could just think of sending a document by express tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and it needs to be at some place. Then you also follow this hierarchical decision process, even if it's subconsciously. And the process starts with the first stage, which is, of course, you need to be aware of the brand. So you need to be aware of the DHL brand, but you might also know some other brands. Only if you know the brand, the next stage can happen. That means you might consider this brand to choose DHL for the delivery. Dependent on this relevant set, you might decide in the next step to choose the brand, maybe for the first time. And we define this as the usage stage, which is that the customer at least uses once a year a brand. But you might also use the brand again. And this is what we call the main provider stage. And it is defined as at least 30% of the shipments are to be done by one provider. And the last stage, that is the I would say, the holy grail of marketing, because then the customer becomes, the brand becomes the first choice for the customer, and that's the sole provider stage. And we say that as a sole provider, the brand has to be at 80% of the shipments for the customer. And as you can imagine, this stage generates the highest returns for the company. So this is an individual customer decision process. It also shows the development of customers, because the more you move to the last stages, the more revenue you make. And so the idea is to understand what drives the customer decisions across this process. And we believe that the brand perceptions, the perceptions of the brand attributes, are important factors to explain why customers go to the next stage or not. And so we can track the performance of the brand along this process. To give you, in a nutshell, an overview of the model itself, the input for this is basically market research, because we can ask customers about their product usage in the last year so that we know how the purchase funnel looks like for an individual customer. But we also need to understand what are the brand perceptions. And we also include as an input brand investments when it comes to the allocation decisions. Then at the core, we have our models. And here I would say operations research comes into play, because we believe that we can use operations principles to explain why customers are deciding in a way which we observe. And the assumption is the following, that the customer tries to maximize his or her utility. And this maximization depends on the benefits that are perceived from getting them from the brand. And so we want to understand which are the important attributes that deliver the most benefit in order to explain the customer decisions. And this is estimated in statistical models, but we also use optimization models to come up with an allocation decision. So in terms of output, we get a number of recommendations to use, and so we know which are the important brand drivers. We can project sales. We can recommend or make recommendations about the budget allocation. So all these things pay into the output side. In terms of market research, since this is a global effort, it involves more than 20 countries in 4 continents. So this is a really huge effort that takes place all the 3 or 4 years. And we developed a questionnaire that satisfies the standards of cross-national measurement equivalence. We are using representative sample of at least 800 business customers per country. And that is the basis, the fact basis that goes into the model, and that is used to estimate the choice models. Let me just give you an overview of the model structure, and this is the only formula I'm going to show you. If you think of, you want to explain what is the unconditional probability that a customer chooses DHL as a sole provider, that basically is a combination of conditional probabilities. And it starts with an unconditional probability that you need to be aware of the brand. And then being aware, the conditional probability to consider the brand is the next probability. And so you need to multiply all these probabilities to come up with the probability at the last stage. And we can model the conditional probability, each of these conditional probabilities, in terms of a choice model that follows this principle of utility maximization. And basically what we estimate is to what extent does a specific brand attribute contribute to the preference formation for the customer that brings him to decide to move to the next stage. And these are the weights, these are the unobservables, and here we are using the idea of utility maximization to derive this model formulation and to estimate this with statistical models. And in fact, we're using state-of-the-art techniques to account for customer heterogeneity and brand preference and all this stuff. From this analysis, we get a lot of information that we can now use to make better brand decisions. And 3 qualities of information are important. The first one is how does the brand perform? Because we are asking people about their purchase behavior in the last year, so it is observed actual purchase behavior. So we can track their performance across the purchase funnel. Typically, you would find some gaps where you see, okay, you are doing not as good as your competitors. And these gaps are important because if you want to close them, we can use our models from the individual level to infer the growth potential in terms of revenues that are associated with closing this gap. And having known what the gap is and what the growth potential in terms of revenues is, well, the next question is how can we leverage this growth potential by closing the gap? So we need to understand what are the strengths and weaknesses of the brand in terms of brand perception. We bring this in a simple 2x2 decision matrix, and at the last step we improve our allocation of the limited marketing budget. I would like to show the application with an example, with a country example, here the United Kingdom. I would just like to remind you, it is a global effort, so the tool is applied in every of these 20 and more countries. But also this is a global effort. It needs to be executed at the country level. So we do this analysis at each country, and here we have the example of the UK. And DHL, the performance of DHL is shown like this. Actually, the brand is performing quite well in the beginning. So 100% of customers who are aware of DHL, you cannot do better. That is an unconditional probability. Then 67% of these customers transfer to the stage of relevant set. So these customers consider DHL as a provider of logistics services. So we end up with 67%. Of these 67%, 62% are transferred to the next stage to try the brand. And so this is what we call the transfer rate, or in terms of modeling the conditional choice probability for the next stage. And this is important because here we learn where does the brand loses its customers. And we can compare this with some benchmark. And at DHL we decided to take the strongest competitor in every country as the benchmark because it's an effort to build a global brand from the scratch. But it might be a different competitor or a different approach to choose the benchmark, maybe if you are in a consolidated business or so. But here we have learned that a lot of gaps can be identified by doing it like this. In the UK, the FedEx of the UK is TNT, so they are leading the market there. And we see in the beginning, actually DHL is performing better than TNT because the transfer rate from awareness to relevant set is higher. But then the transfer rates are better for TNT, so they are losing less customers than we are losing across these stages. And this gives us the opportunity to identify a gap, which is shown here at the bottom line. And this gap, well, that's an objective to close it. Next question is, okay, if we close this gap, what is the growth potential in terms of revenues? And a second question is, how much of this gap can we close by improving the brand perception? Because not everything is about branding that drives customers across the purchase process. But we can take the TNT brand and just simulate, use our estimated choice models to simulate if we improve the brand perception in a way to achieve the level of TNT, how much of the conditional probability can be improved to close the gap. And in this example, we see it's better on the last stages than compared to the first stages. And that sets the objective for brand management. And we can derive from this also the number of additional customers that can be won when we close this gap. And because the last stages, the sole provider customers provide by far the largest share to the sales, we can also infer what is the sales that would come from closing the gap at each of these stages. And when you sum this up, you end with 300 million euros for the UK, which is quite a substantial number. Well, the gap is identified, the growth potential also, which is important. So you know where to run the business and which direction. But the question is, how can you leverage this growth potential? So we now dive into a strength and weakness analysis because we want to better understand where are the strengths and weaknesses of the brand perception. And I'm not going into all these attributes shown in this slide here, but you see there are some attributes where DHL is perceived better than the market average, but at the bottom, several attributes are doing worse, and especially also compared to TNT. So typically brand management, the traditional one, would stop here and try to use some heuristic approaches to identify which are the important attributes to focus now in ad campaigns and so. But that is not that easy because it would be nice to know which are the relevant attributes to leverage the growth potential. And we know that from our models because we know which brand attributes drive customer decisions. So we bring this information into the decision making, and we can do this by calculating the purchase relevance of an attribute. And basically we measure this as the sensitivity of sales in terms of brand attribute improvement. That means if I improve the brand attribute perception by a certain percentage, how much percentage increase can I expect in terms of sales? And so that's a sales sensitivity, and we can bring this into this simple 2x2 matrix. So on the x-axis we have the weaknesses and strengths and brand perceptions, and on the y-axis we have the purchase relevance. And the analysis shows that not all of the attributes in the UK are really relevant for the purchase decisions. So only these attributes which are shown here are relevant. And of course, the attributes where we are weak compared to our competitor and which have the highest purchase relevance, those attributes promise the largest growth potential, because here we can improve the most in terms of perception, and it is most relevant for purchase decisions. So this gives you already an idea what to concentrate on. And that's the importance of this matrix, because it tells you something about how to prioritize in brand management, because that's the briefing you give to the agency, and that needs to be decided, and we now decide this based on a quantitative tool on an understanding of the purchase relevance. From this, we can also derive an improved budget allocation, because we have the sales sensitivities of the attributes available. We have a limited budget, so you can put this into a constrained profit maximization problem. I'm not showing this in detail, but you can solve it with a standard Lagrange type of solving the maximization problem. And basically you end up with a very simple formula, an allocation rule, which can be implemented in Excel, which says, well, the optimal share of a total budget that should be given to the investment in improving a specific attribute should be proportional to the sales sensitivity relative to the sales sensitivities of all the other attributes you consider. And that's a very simple rule, and depicted maybe you should not put all your eggs in one basket, but you need to know how much eggs should be in each of the baskets. And just to show this to you for the situation in the UK, we see in the 2x2 matrix there was almost an equal allocation of the budget across the different quadrants. And after applying this allocation routine, we see, unsurprisingly, the upper left quadrant where the items with the highest purchase relevance and the highest potential in terms of improving the brand perception are located should also get the largest share of the budget. It doesn't mean that all the other attributes should get no budget, but it is a reallocation which is quite substantial. I would like to give over now to my colleague, Chuck Freund, who is talking about the implementation of this model.
So let me take it from there and talk about the implementation, the delivery of the brand promise, so how to really bring the brand to life in daily operations. Now, on a huge effort as DHL has started here, we obviously had a number of obstacles to overcome. To only name two of them, market research, bringing that to about 20 countries, given respect to all of the country specifics and the language issues, has actually been quite a challenge. And also talking about the organization being as large as DHL really is, has been facing a couple of challenges as well. So being here in Orlando and acknowledging that the municipality of Orlando has about 250,000 inhabitants, let's just use that as a frame of reference and imagine that not only all of the inhabitants of Orlando would have a yellow and red colored car, but all of them would understand, embrace, and truly live the brand in daily operations. And now imagine Orlando not being in Florida, but being spread across 200 countries and territories with about 100 languages spoken. That is only to give a brief view on the complexity that had to be tackled. Now, taking it from there, we believe that there have been at least 3 points worth mentioning that have been crucial to the success of the effort. One is certainly about the top management support, and we'll come back to that later. So with the former CEO, who in 2003 initiated the effort, but also with the current CEO giving full support to brand management and the project, the brand assessment tool, has been of instrumental importance. Secondly, a major emphasis has been put on brand delivery. So here it's not only about the corporate design, but it's also about engaging the people, making them understand what the brand actually means for their specific role when dealing with the customers, which is supported by brand delivery guidelines, but is also supported by interactive means such as the DHL Brand World, which is available in the intranet, and which really sort of offers an opportunity for the employees to engage with the brand, get familiar, and live with it. And thirdly, more on the technical side, it's also about the standardization of market research. So employing rigor in pursuing standardization in research, repeating that on a constant cycle basis, and also transferring that into reports which are actionable and thereby provide the management decision support needed. Most visibly possible, it is about the ad campaigns. So it's about the colorful pictures. A few years ago, it has been about mainly size, more reach. That have been the key messages in public communication for the brand, really speaking to the element of size only. Now, as per the results of the brand assessment tool, this is a lot more differentiated now. So by country, we can actually understand what are the most important attributes for the customers, what are the benefits, what are the needs which need to be stressed in communication. And this is an example from the last global brand campaign, which really makes the point that here very different attributes are being stressed to drive sales in that specific area. And as this visual may indicate, it is actually Fujitsu Computers of Japan joining DHL as a co-partner in that advertising. And actually, as DHL was gaining strength as a brand in the course of the past few years, more and more partners have joined DHL in advertising. And in preparation of today's competition, we were asking a few of them to give testimony to what they think about the DHL brand. So let's have a brief look at that video.
DHL has earned our trust because they are committed to very good performance standards in terms of quality, service and costs.
こうした中、グローバルで物流事業トップの DHL 様にはグローバルに展開できる
We're obviously very proud and very, very happy to be partners with such a very successful brand.
DHL was from the beginning, they offered us the best price and the best fee, the best logistic, the best organization, and that's the reason why we choose DHL not only in the past, but we will do also in the future.
So with that said by the partners of DHL, the question obviously is, so what's the impact? Now, as Laurie has indicated earlier, the key measurement, the key indicator for DHL is about the brand value. Now, brand value is only part of the entire entity value of DHL. So we are concentrating on this piece, talking about the brand equity share. Now, in the past years, we've seen the brand value of DHL increase by $1.3 billion US, and that actually equals a ROI of 38% or a 24% internal rate of return with respect to the brand investments taken. Now, that means that if you were to acquire DHL today, you would actually have to pay $1.3 billion more than you had to pay a few years ago. This is what has been achieved on that note, but let's also have a look at what this means and what the brand assessment tool has really helped in terms of increasing the brand value. Now, as we saw earlier, this is the matrix that Mark has just shown, how the marketing spending has been allocated to the different attributes. And now we know by strengthening the brand that there will be a sales impact. So by doing so, the sales impact, referring back to the UK example that we introduced earlier, would have been 8.2%, estimating that each of the brand image dimensions is strengthened, increased by 10%. But now, obviously, using OR, we have a fact-based decision. We can now reallocate funds with respect to the marketing allocation on a fact base. And that is why we actually come to a different picture now, as you've seen earlier, which actually does yield a higher sales impact. So versus 8.2, we are now yielding a 13% impact on sales under the very same assumption, and the difference of 4.8% is obviously fully profit relevant, given the fact that we are still building on the very same brand-specific investments to be taken in communication. So with that said, where does it take us? Well, for the first time ever, Millward Brown, as an external provider of brand valuation, has ranked DHL amongst the top 100 most valuable brands globally. DHL in 2009 has been ranked with a brand value of almost $10 billion US on rank number 68. There is still a way to go, but obviously DHL was pleased to know that on a year-on-year comparison, DHL has actually been outperforming competitors with a growth rate year-on-year of 19% when it comes to the growth and brand value. So with that said, that is obviously the key indicator for success of brand management at DHL. But there is more to it, especially when it comes to organizational impact. And let me hand back over to Laurie to talk about those for this end.
The brand initiative has also provided us with amazing organizational impact as well in 3 areas. The first area is communication. Our messages are now fact-based by design. The second area is about control. We're now able to track performance back to the key performance indicators like never before. And the third is about spirit, or in other words, employee engagement. It's about being able to draw a clear line of sight between our frontline employees, especially our frontline employees, the couriers, the customer service representatives, the salespeople, so that they have a clear line of sight between their individual roles and the brand direction. Also, we have 4 lessons learned, if we could share that and leave you with that. The first lesson learned is that OR really pays off, and you've seen how it can significantly increase the growth potential of your brand. Number 2, it's imperative to have top management support. Have top management support on board early in the process. Number 3, again, it's making sure that you're branding from the inside out. Making sure that everyone really understands where you're going with the brand and can articulate it, creating brand ambassadors. And number 4, it's about continuous measurement and monitoring, closing the cycle of the brand management process and then starting it again. And we're happy to say that we will be starting our next wave in a couple months. Now, when I talk about the importance of top management support, it's just not rhetoric at our company. Our CEO, Frank Apple, wanted to make a video message to share with you today. So I'm going to close our presentation and thank you for your time and attention and turn it over to Frank.
dear guests, participants, and jury of the 2010 Edelman Award competition. My name is Frank Appel. I'm the CEO of Deutsche Post DHL, and it's my honor to say a few words today about our DHL brand. It has been a great pleasure for me to learn that DHL has been nominated for its innovative brand management approach in this year's Edelman Award competition. The nomination honors the tremendous efforts of our employees to develop DHL as a brand and organization. For us, brand management at DHL has been proven to be a success story. Let me summarize in few words the importance of the global brand assessment tool for our company. The tool had a considerable impact on DHL's global brand strategy. It helped refine and strengthen the global branding positioning of DHL. In addition, it contributed to transform the organization in a significant and lasting way. Brand communication and decision-making is now fact-based. Finally, the brand management approach had a significant financial impact. Milbert Brown, an independent provider of brand valuation, confirms this success. In 2009, they included DHL among the top 100 global brands worth of nearly $10 billion. I'm very proud of this success. And I'm convinced that our strong DHL brand will remain a key competitive advantage for us. We are both Germany's postal operator and the global market leader for logistics. It is our ultimate goal to be our customers' first choice. In order to live up to this expectation, the DHL brand promise and brand execution will continue to be a driving force of our business. Global brand management has become an integrated part of our corporate strategy.